October 27, 2025. The Caribbean Sea slept under a black sky, still and silent. Then at precisely 2:10 a.m., a whisper appeared on U.S. Navy radar, a shadow drifting 60 nautical miles off Cartagena. No lights, no signals, no transponder. Within seconds, the P-8 Poseidon reconnaissance aircraft locked onto its thermal image. One ship, then two, then five. A silent convoy cutting across the dark, each vessel flying a fake humanitarian flag, each one hiding something far more lethal beneath its decks. 5 ships, 5 tons of pure methamphetamine and fentanyl. Street value, $30 billion. Enough poison to erase a generation. From Washington to Miami, alarms blared across the encrypted channels of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, and the U.S. Navy. Intelligence confirmed the unthinkable, a joint smuggling fleet operated by 2 of the hemisphere's most feared cartel lords. Rafael El Toro Mendez of Venezuela and Santiago Ruiz of Mexico's Gulf Syndicate. These were not fishermen or smugglers. They were the architects of a narco-industrial empire. Their plan: flood American cities with synthetic drugs, cripple economies, and profit from chaos. Operation Iron Tide was born that night, a coordinated strike between the U.S. Navy, the DEA, and the FBI. A mission to intercept, capture, or destroy the convoy before it vanished into the Gulf. Leading the task force was the USS Freedom, a 3,900-ton Freedom-class combat ship carrying 300 sailors and 30 DEA tactical agents. Overhead, 2 SH-60 Seahawk helicopters armed with M240 machine guns hovered in blackout mode, while an MQ-9 Reaper drone at 6,000 meters streamed live footage to the Pentagon. Every minute mattered. If the convoy crossed into Venezuelan waters, pursuit would become a diplomatic nightmare. So the order came through from Southern Command: engage on sight. No escape. At 2:31 a.m., the fleet's deception unraveled. ICE analysts decrypted financial chatter linking the vessels to offshore accounts in Panama and Macau. Payments worth $1.4 billion had been made within 24 hours. This wasn't a smuggling run. It was an arm's-length exchange, a deal between governments, cartels, and foreign contractors hiding behind charity fronts. By 2:50 a.m., the Freedom had visual contact. Through the night vision scope, Commander Ellis Moore could see the ships in formation. No distress signals, no navigation lights, only movement and intent. He knew what this meant: war at sea. The engines of the USS Freedom roared. The Seahawk rotors began to spin. Moore gave the order to close in. All stations, prepare to intercept. From the bridge, the ocean stretched endlessly black. Somewhere ahead, 5 ghosts waited. Ghosts worth billions. The Navy would strike first or lose everything. And in 30 seconds, you'll see what happens when America's hunters finally catch their prey. But first, subscribe so you don't miss this, because the storm that's about to erupt will rewrite the rules of modern warfare. 3:05 a.m. The USS Freedom cut through the humid Caribbean night like a blade. Every sailor on deck knew what was coming. Across the black water, the Cartel fleet moved in a tight crescent formation, 5 ships, engines throttled low, pretending to be relief vessels. But infrared scans told the truth. Each ship carried heat signatures of men and machinery, heavy weapon crates, and barrels tagged Medical Aid Caracas, the world's deadliest disguise. Commander Ellis Moore's voice cracked over the intercom. Final warning: drop engines and stand down silence. Then a flicker of muzzle flashed across the horizon. The first shot didn't miss. Tracer rounds tore through the darkness, slicing the air around the Freedom's deck. The Venezuelan-Mexican cartel alliance had opened fire without hesitation. 70 armed fighters, equipped with AK-103 rifles, RPG-7s, and PKM heavy machine guns, unleashed chaos upon the waves. The Caribbean exploded in light and thunder. Moore slammed his fist on the console. Engage all hostile targets. The Freedom's Mark 110 57mm naval gun thundered to life. Shells ripped through the sea, detonating with pinpoint accuracy. Within seconds, one enemy vessel erupted in a bloom of blue-white flame as its cargo, chemical drums filled with lithium-based precursors, detonated. The shock wave rolled across the waves, rattling the hull. Overhead, two SH-60 Seahawk helicopters screamed into attack formation. Their twin M240 machine guns spat fire, raining 950 rounds per minute onto the Cartel decks. Men dove for cover as railings and gun mounts splintered. At 6,000 meters, the MQ-9 Reaper drone transmitted live combat footage to U.S. Central Command. From space to sea, America was watching its hunters strike. For 5 long minutes, the Caribbean turned into a war zone. A Cartel gunboat swung wide, attempting to flank the Freedom's port side. Moore shouted, "Countermeasure, left turret." The gunners obeyed. One precise shell hit the vessel's stern, tearing it in half. It sank in less than 40 seconds, but the Cartel didn't yield. 2 remaining ships accelerated north, desperate to break contact. Moore's jaw tightened. Reaper 1, target vessel Delta. A streak of light flashed across the sky, the Hellfire missile. It struck midship. The explosion lit the night like dawn. Another ship gone. When the smoke cleared, only wreckage remained. The Freedom's crew cheered, but Moore stayed silent. He knew victory at sea was only part of the story. DEA boarding teams moved fast. Shadow 6 agents rappelled down onto the smoldering wrecks. Gas masks strapped tight. The air reeked of ammonia and burning plastic. Inside the holds, they found the Empire's core, 5,000 kilograms of methamphetamine and fentanyl sealed in steel drums, stacks of Venezuelan cash totaling $42 million, and forged export manifests stamped with fake Colombian customs seals. By 4:05 a.m., the battle was over. 5 ships destroyed or seized, 43 cartel fighters dead, 26 captured, and the rest vanished beneath the waves. Over $30 billion in narcotics neutralized in a single night. But as dawn crept across the sea, Moore's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. The radar was clear, but his gut wasn't, because what waited inland would make this look like a skirmish. 7:30 a.m. The sea was quiet, but the war had only changed shape. Hours after the battle, while the USS Freedom cataloged wreckage, encrypted coordinates began flashing across DEA headquarters in Quantico. The data recovered from the destroyed fleet pointed to something massive. 2 industrial hubs operating out of Bogotá and Cartagena, Colombia. Both appeared to be legitimate shipping companies. Both were fronts for a billion-dollar chemical empire. By 8 a.m., Operation Iron Tide, Phase 2 was authorized. A joint strike team of 150 DEA and ICE agents, supported by Colombian National Police Special Forces, lifted off from coastal airfields. The plan was surgical, simultaneous raids to cripple the cartel's mainland network before it could relocate production. At 8:12 a.m., the first target came into view, a warehouse near the port of Cartagena. From the outside, it looked harmless, its walls painted with charity logos and the words Global Relief Supplies. But inside was a fortress. Agents breached the doors under automatic fire. 30 cartel soldiers fought back with rifles and grenades, but they were outgunned. Within 10 minutes, the firefight was over. What agents found inside stunned even the veterans. Row upon row of machinery, 3D printers, and lithium reactors lined the walls. The facility wasn't just storing drugs, it was manufacturing them in real time. Each reactor could synthesize 2,000 pounds of fentanyl precursors per week. A small army of chemists had fled moments before the assault, leaving laptops and encrypted drives still warm. In a sealed underground vault, forensic teams cracked open 12 steel safes. Inside lay $68 million in cash, stacks of gold bars and ledgers connecting Ortega Holdings, a Venezuelan state-backed company already under international sanctions. The documents traced payments to offshore accounts in Macau, Dubai, and Hong Kong. The evidence was clear. This was not a cartel acting alone. It was a multinational syndicate operating like a state. By 9 a.m., explosions echoed again, this time in Bogotá's industrial zone. DEA Field Commander Miguel Alvarez reported contact with heavy resistance. Cartel engineers had turned warehouses into mobile drug labs. 5 rolling synthesis pods powered by portable lithium cores. When agents breached the compound, they faced 32 gunmen firing from rooftops. The battle raged for 40 minutes before the site fell. 25 cartel members were dead, 43 captured alive, including the syndicate's logistics chief, El Científico, known for merging narcotics and defense-grade technology. By noon, both cities were under federal control. The seizures stunned Washington. $1.2 billion in assets, 14 tons of precursor chemicals, and dozens of hard drives exposing a global narcotics infrastructure. As helicopters lifted the captured men into custody, smoke curled through the morning sky. For Commander Moore, watching from the Freedom's live feed, the realization settled in. What began as a naval interception had become a continental war. The Caribbean wasn't the end. It was the first chapter of something far bigger. 2 p.m., Washington, D.C. Inside the White House Situation Room, red icons blinked across the screens. 5 cartel vessels destroyed. Countless more routes lighting up like a web. Each line stretched from Caracas to Panama, from Macau to the Gulf of Mexico, forming a global supply chain of crime. What the U.S. Navy, FBI, and DEA had crushed in one night wasn't a single fleet. It was a $30 billion empire with the reach of a nation-state. Admiral Robert Kingsley of U.S. Southern Command faced the National Security Council. His words were measured but cold. This wasn't organized crime, he said. This was logistics warfare. The statement hung in the air. He was right, because this war was no longer about drugs. It was about control of economies, trade routes, and human dependency itself. Analysts walked through the data. 5 tons of narcotics seized, 14 tons of chemical precursors captured, $110 million in currency and gold, 90 encrypted drives exposing offshore transfers through Macau, Dubai, and Caracas. Forensic teams confirmed what nobody wanted to admit. The mobile labs used military-grade lithium reactors designed for state defense. The fingerprints of government contractors were all over them. At 3:20 p.m., Operation Iron Tide evolved into Operation Red Horizon, a cyber financial counterstrike aimed at dismantling the cartel's digital empire. Within hours, 7 foreign banks froze $1.4 billion in assets. The Treasury Department announced emergency sanctions, while Homeland Security traced shell companies linked to Chinese and Venezuelan suppliers. America had won the night, but in doing so, it had uncovered a deeper war, one fought not with armies, but with ledgers, algorithms, and anonymous cargo ships moving through the fog of commerce. As dusk fell over the Caribbean, the USS Freedom cut across the still smoldering sea. The sky turned gold as the smoke thinned. Commander Ellis Moore stood alone on deck, the ocean breeze pulling at his uniform. "The next war won't begin with soldiers," he said quietly. "It'll begin with cargo." The camera drifts over floating barrels stamped medical aid. Caracas, charred steel plates, and burnt cash fluttering on the waves. The narration fades in. In a world where greed sails under white flags and violence hides behind diplomacy, vigilance is the only wall that never falls. Justice doesn't sleep, it sails. And somewhere, the sea still remembers everything. If you believe America must never turn away from its own battles, hit subscribe and keep this story alive. Because the next signal, the next convoy, may already be moving beneath the waves. And when it does, you'll want to know first.